Yes, yes, my fellow Ambazonians, this is your humble servant, Comrade Ofoka Eugene. I am here with you guys today, as I promised, today, the 15th day of October 2021. I know for some time now, I have not been around, and we have been focusing on other better things, outside of social media. But we are here today to have this very important show, and we are going to have two guests that are going to come and talk with us today. Definitely, first, there will be the lady from the Global Center from the Responsibility to Protect in New York, and also one of our own comrade, Eldin Gang, is going to join the show after she left. So, fellow comrades, if you are just watching us, I am just starting right now, and this is going to be a very, very interesting live show, and it's a one that I want every Ambazonian to watch. But before I proceed with this live show, as a tradition, as a tradition, comrades, when you join, please share the link and invite others. Share the link and invite others as well, so we can move on. Share the link. 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 Let us get others on board, and then we can proceed. Yes, share the link. You can share it on WhatsApp groups and other forums, so we can get people to join us. We are going to have a very, very interesting conversation today. We are going to discuss about many things. And Amazonians, the struggle is alive, and the struggle is very strong, more than ever before. Yes, more than ever before. We are stronger now than more than ever before, Ambazonians. Our soldiers on the ground, and their resources, their weapons, and everything is now powerful. So, as a tradition for our live show, always, Ambazonians, I will always want to start with the Ambazonian national anthem, and we are going to do that in a moment. So please just hold on, and we are going to bring you the national anthem of Southern Cameroons, and then we can continue with the live show. No retreat, no surrender. So the guys on the studio, you can put us through with the anthem, and then we can proceed. Major General Commando, the King of Momo, the father of CTA. Yes, Ambazonian. Your own son of the soil is here today with you. And I know many Ambazonians have been writing to me, calling and texting and asking, Comrade Eugene, where are you? How are you doing? And comrades, we have been doing a lot of stuff behind the scene. Sometimes it is good to stay away from Facebook with all the social media noise and just focus on doing the work behind the scenes. So, but time to time, you come out and meet our people and talk to them. So we are going to start with the national anthem of Southern Cameroons very soon. Please share the link so others can join us. Share the link. Let us get others to join. Let us get others to join us. Share the link so we can get others to join us. We have a lot to talk about, Ambazonians. We have a lot to talk about. And we are broadcasting this live show here. We're supposed to make it. We hope it will go also on SCBC. We are going to put it on YouTube. You can also watch the live show from those other platforms, and also on my page. You can see us streaming there live right now. This is a live show that we are going to get things back on track, talking about very key points, important factors, and just on fact, and this is how we must continue with this struggle right now, Ambazonians. This is the way that we have to stay on the things that are relevant. So the national anthem.
sing. Praise the soul of Savior who granted us the freedom. I love the soul of hero who brought the Lord.
Let us get the national anthem. But it's good you guys are coming up. We are seeing the views are coming up. So we need share the link. We know many people don't know about this page. They didn't know I was coming on here live. So but I hope Amazonians can watch this show after. They are going to always watch my show.
For making you a nation, a joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our needs, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall live in plenty, meeting our needs, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of this nation.
Yes, comrades. Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to appreciate our studio guys for doing fantastic job. We have the national anthem done now. And fellow Ambazonians, also, I want to give a minute of silence for our beautiful daughter that was slaughtered in Boya yesterday. So a moment of silence for her life. May her soul rest in peace. And we shall continue to fight and fight for justice for her, for many other Southern Cameroonians who have been killed by the banality of evil of Mr. Paul Biya regime of Cameroon. So a minute of silence for her life. Yes, comrade. Yes, comrade. Thank you very much. Those of you who are here, it has been a while that many Ambazonians have been texting, writing, calling, trying to get to me. But, you know, Ambazonians, this struggle, like we said in the beginning, it is not going to be a walk in the park. We said this in the beginning. Those of you who didn't know this, people who didn't understand this, they thought this struggle is going to be a short walk. No, this struggle is going to be a marathon. And in a marathon, it's not how fast you run, but how far and how willing you are going to go to the end. It is the end that matters, not those who were there in the beginning, you know. So many activists, many people joined this struggle, they joined the bandwagon, and with their own secondary motivation and intentions, they are all off the way. But those of us who are true believers of the cause, we are believers of the cause, we believe in the struggle to free Southern Cameroons. We are going to be here, we are going to fight till we get to Boya. We are not going to make any move. We shall never blink. We shall stay on course until we reach my home, until we reach Boya. Oh, never leave this journey halfway. Oh, until we reach Boya. I will never leave this journey halfway. Oh, until we get to Boya. So if anybody is doubting this struggle, I want to assure you, Southern Cameroonians, that their conviction for this struggle need to be stronger now. Because if there is anything that we see today, we see very clear that Cameroon have been defeated. If there's anything we know today, we know very clear that Cameroon have been defeated. If you just look at what happened in Boya yesterday, when this stupid, useless police murdered this little girl, what happened? The community rise up and stand against them. That is something we have never seen before in Ambazonia. But these are the lingua franca of our people. Our people now know their rights. Our people are now awake. They are empowered. And our people are now willing to fight for their cause, for their own justice. That is part of the struggle in Ambazonia, because you cannot win a war to free anybody who doesn't want to free themselves. You can never do that. When this struggle started in 2016, there were many Southern Cameroonians who did not believe in the struggle, who were like, were bringing them along. But today, every single soul in Southern Cameroon is a sure core believer of the struggle and they are fighting for themselves. That is what we wanted. Because Ambazonia, you have to understand that there are many stages in a revolution struggle. And the main issue here is that you cannot win a fight. If you're a leader, you need to be able to convince your people, sell your idea to them, get them the same conviction as you have to fight for the cause. A good leader is in front, showing the way, and the people follows that vision. But if you cannot share the vision, but today, Ambazonians, we all now have the vision. We have the same one singular vision to free Southern Cameroons. Now, every single soul in Ambazonia can see that. Every single soul in our national territory can see that, and they believe in that. And that was something that was missing. And that is the thing that we have now at this stage. And this is why it is very important that every Ambazonian need to understand this, that our struggle today is very strong, very much alive, more than any other time within these 5 years. And Ambazonians, these are the things that we were telling you people from the very beginning, that we need to get to this stage. We need to get to this point where every single Southern Cameroonian is a comrade, is a soldier. When every Ambazonian believes in the cause and they are involved in fighting to free our people. That is what we need to do at this very stage. Everyone, this is a fight for everybody. This is a fight for every Southern Cameroonian. And this is a little baby that was murdered by the Paul Biya's regime yesterday. These are the kind of things that we are fighting to stop, to free our people from this carnage of Cameroon, to free our people from this lawlessness that we suffer, this oppression, this repression from the Cameroon government. And until we get to Buea, Ambazonians, until we are there in Buea, we will never leave this fight halfway. For people like her, who died innocently without even knowing what is going on. For Baby Mata also, who was killed in the same cause. Mami Apin, Sam Soya, all the thousands of our people that have been killed. We shall fight until we get to Buea, Ambazonians. There is no turning back. There is no retreat. There is no surrender. We are going to push this struggle till we get to the end. So Ambazonians, I will just take a little break. Perhaps we can play some music, and then we try to get our guests to join us, and then we can ride on with the show and continue with that. So please, if you are just joining the show, kindly share the link so we can get others to join us. We can get others to join us on board. Share the link, please share the link. Every son and daughter of Southern Cameroon, this is our collective responsibility, our collective duty to fight and defend our homeland by all means and any means necessary to free our people. This is not any time that we have to think. No, we are not thinking. We already know what needs to be done, and we have to work hard to get it done. That is the one singular mission we have, so that we uphold the spirit of this little baby that was killed yesterday in Buea by the brutal regime of Mr. Paul Biya's government of Yaoundé. So, comrades, I think that we will try to get our guest online with us. If she is there, we can see if the people on the studio are trying to get her on. Let me get to the studio, guys. Let me get to the studio, guys.
Yes, I'm anointed. Lawyer the walk, justice the chop, anointed. Yes, I'm annoyed from Dr. Wako. Patient them die, annoyed. 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 You annoyed. Yes, I'm annoyed. Children they go school. They walk in no day. Annoyed. 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 You annoyed. Yes, I'm annoyed. People them go to sin them no care. Annoyed. 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 Yes, I'm annoyed.
All right.
Yes,
So we finally get to now.
Lawyer, they walk. Justice, they
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can hear the music louder.
Yeah, I don't know where is that.
Yes,
Okay, yeah, that is gone. Yeah. Juliet, thank you very, very much. I really want to appreciate that you took your time to sit down here with me and to talk about the crisis in Cameroon. And this is not a 5 years old crisis. It's a decades long crisis that has been going on in Cameroon. And we had the same discussion some time ago in February, if I remember, and it was a Friday as well also. So what a coincidence. But thank you very much for coming. We know you guys are very busy in New York. So I'll just give you maybe a few minutes to introduce yourself, because there might be some people who are watching us for the first time, so they get to know who are you and where are you from and what do you do.
Sure. No, thank you so much for having me again, and for me to join this show on such a critical time again in the Anglophone conflict. And you're right, like we spoke in February, and unfortunately we have to speak again and again on this very important crisis going on. So yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Juliet. I'm working for the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect. I'm based in New York, but we also have a small office in Geneva. And we are focusing on atrocity crimes. So we're trying to mobilize international action to respond to atrocity crimes where they are occurring or where there's a risk of atrocities. So I am currently following the situations in Cameroon, in Nigeria, and also in Sudan and South Sudan. Again, we have started closely monitoring the situation in Cameroon since 2016, when the political conflict intensified after students and teachers began protesting against their underrepresentation and cultural marginalization. So I'm trying to move the international community to take action in the context of the situation in Cameroon currently. So for particularly the Security Council, also the Human Rights Council, but also any individual member states that are interested in doing something, and to make sure that something is happening to stop the escalation of the conflict further.
Yeah, and that's very good to hear. Actually, that's very good to hear. But if we want to talk about this, when always people want to talk about this crisis in Cameroon, it is usually very important to kind of put the historical context. It's very long story that we can't, we cannot explain that online here today. We don't have that time anyway. But you, as the expert that you are working and following the crisis in Cameroon, and I, as a citizen of Ambazonia as well, of course, I am following. So, but I want to hear from the expert. What is the current situation? If you have to give a report, what is the level of which, in which level is Cameroon on your radar in what to do?
Right, that's a good question. And as I said, we are focusing particularly on atrocity crimes and the implementation of the responsibility to protect, which is an international norm that all heads of states and governments agreed to in 2005, meaning that they have a responsibility to respond and prevent atrocity crimes. So in this context, I am looking at the situation in Cameroon, and we are advocating for those populations that are at risk of atrocities. And with atrocities, I mean genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and ethnic cleansing. So in Cameroon, we see a conflict currently between armed separatist groups in the northwest and southwest regions and the Cameroonian security forces, resulting in widespread abuses against the civilian populations. Security forces have perpetrated extrajudicial killings. They burned Anglophone villages, subjected individuals with alleged separatist ties to torture and ill treatment. And we also witness armed separatist forces perpetrating abuses, including the kidnapping and killing of civilians. And since 2016, more than 4,000 people have been killed as a result of the conflict. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, or OCHA, estimates that currently at least 712,800 people have been internally displaced in the southern Cameroons, and 67,500 people have fled to Nigeria. Approximately 30% of the health facilities are unable to operate due to insecurity, which is particularly worrying during the current COVID-19 pandemic. Armed groups have banned government education, frequently attacked schools and teachers, resulting in 80% of the schools in the two regions being closed or destroyed. An estimated 800,000 children are out of school due to the crisis. And students and teachers are killed, kidnapped, tortured, caught in crossfire, and subjected to arbitrary arrests and detentions. So the targeting of individuals based upon their cultural identity poses a direct threat to civilians and may amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. And the government of Cameroon continues to deny the severity of the crisis, has failed to address the root causes, and has failed to provide political means to resolving it. And since the beginning of this year, we see an escalation of the conflict in the southern Cameroons. The government has increased its operations against armed separatist strongholds, but also separatist groups have stepped up their attacks against government security forces using different and more deadly weapons. They have, for example, used improvised explosive devices to target military convoys in at least 30 different attacks in 2021, which is more than in all previous years of the conflict combined. And also due to the increased frustration that we currently see on both sides about the protracted nature of the conflict, civilians continue to bear the brunt of this. And we see increasing reports of civilians being killed, including women and children. And you see the situation is very tense. Like yesterday, when a police officer killed that young child, it sparked immediately widespread protests, lynching the police officer. And the people in southern Cameroons do not deserve to live in constant fear, to experience atrocities on a daily basis, to be caught in a war that they did not ask for. Civilians are not a target. And yesterday's horrific events show the human cost of the conflict, right? This is not a random incident of a random police officer accidentally killing a young girl after her mother didn't want to pay the money he demanded from her. Yesterday's event is the Anglophone crisis. It shows how corrupt the government and government institutions are. It shows how highly militarized the southern Cameroon regions are, and how the lack of accountability for previous atrocities fuels further violence. And I think what is also extremely worrying is that the conflict also risks to spill over, and has already spilled over, to neighboring Nigeria, after the recent announcement of separatists in Nigeria joining forces with Anglophone separatists. And this further ignites ethnic tensions in the region and could threaten regional instability. So I'm happy to talk further about that, or also the threat that Boko Haram is facing is a risk to civilians in the far north. But maybe I'll stop here for any further questions.
Yeah, that's very good. I think that is a grand introduction of the situation, and nobody could maybe give a better analysis of how things are than you, who is the expert and following the crisis. So you mentioned the humanitarian crisis. You mentioned the alert level of the situation in Cameroon, and for me, someone who, if I would say like a novice, this sounds like a failed state. Cameroon sounds like a failed state. It sounds like Southern Cameroon is clearly ungovernable. There is no clear sense of leadership in Cameroon. There's no accountability, and it's just a jungle. Is that what Cameroon is now?
Yeah, I totally agree with it. If we look at the humanitarian situation, not only the conflict and the violence escalates, it's also the accompanying humanitarian situation that continues to deteriorate. And OCHA currently estimates that 1.1 million people are currently severely food insecure in the southern Cameroons. And the humanitarian response is underfunded and underreported. So what escalated as a political crisis has now become a significant, complex humanitarian emergency. Especially the people in the remote areas are most affected because of the limited or no access to healthcare, nutrition, water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities, and they have limited access to farmland due to insecurity. So the Anglophone regions represent like a complex operational environment with heightened insecurity, with active armed actors. So this environment is particularly difficult for organizations providing humanitarian assistance because it's so politically charged. An insecure environment that could expose aid partners to the risk of misperception, and impact on humanitarian access to vulnerable communities who are dependent on life-saving aid. And health facilities are currently running out of drugs, medical supplies, and aid workers are at increased risk of crossfire, kidnapping, and violent attacks. And it has happened several times already that aid convoys were attacked because they allegedly sided with the government, the United Nations, or the international community. The humanitarian and the development actors on the ground are frequently questioned by armed actors on suspected or perceived association with either side. And this anxiety brought by this uncertainty leaves humanitarians in an unsafe working environment. And extremely worrying in this context is also the suspension of international humanitarian organizations, such as Doctors Without Borders, by the Cameroonian government. They were suspended in December 2020, and as a result of that, they had to withdraw and severely draw down their operations in the Northwest region last August. So this means that the most vulnerable populations are unable to receive life-saving assistance. Like last month, for example, over 40,000 people were denied food assistance due to insecurity and roadblocks in the Northwest and Southwest regions. And we see often that in countries and regions where atrocity crimes are being committed, there's a huge impact on societies. Not only the violence, but it's the economies, it's development, it's education, it's healthcare, it's everything. As you said, it looks like a failed state. And this also severely impacts the future generations. Like imagine children growing up amidst fearing for their lives, in anxiety, not being able to go to school, not receiving the education that is so critical for the future of Southern Cameroons. And the fact that this little girl yesterday was killed on her way to school, that shows the urgency of the situation. So I agree that it starts to look like a failed state, and international action has been long overdue.
Yeah, really, I think when you are speaking, I'm just making notes. There's a lot, my notes are just getting longer and longer. Actually, we don't have enough time to talk. We've tried to go to the most important things to discuss on. And I think, yeah, clearly what you are saying, for me, it is, and for many of us, it is a humanitarian aspect that we look onto. The children, women, and people who are innocent, kids like the one who was slaughtered yesterday, who barely doesn't understand what is going on. They are being killed. It is the thing that is painful for us to take, because it is not a political aspect. This, we're talking about the humanity of people. 8 million people, the humanity is being thrown away, and they are being treated as animals or something less than a human. So this is all the things you are saying, all those stuff, they are very touching, and the numbers, anywhere you look, they are staggering. But again, there is this outer silence from the international community. That is what we don't understand, because these two things doesn't add up. And from last time when we spoke, you talk about the 3 pillars of the R2P. And when I look closely to them, the third option of international intervention, when the government have failed to uphold their responsibility to protect. So now I'm looking at that third pillar, the third pillar of R2P. Why have that not been used in Cameroon? See now.
Yeah. That's that's a very difficult question to answer, because R2P is first and foremost about the prevention of atrocity crimes, right? Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 ensures that states need to take action, international community needs to take action when there is a risk or when atrocity crimes are being committed. And only as a very last resort, under Pillar 3, there are many tools under Pillar 3, and only as a last resort is the authorization of a force in accordance with the UN Charter by the UN Security Council. And then when we talk about the UN Security Council, that is where the problems lie, because the Security Council has been unable to take any effective action, not only in the context of Cameroon, but also in the context of any other situation currently facing atrocity crimes. For example, Myanmar, where there was a military coup that is killing people on the streets. they have not been able to take any effective action. And even on the topics that are less controversial and where Security Council members, like in principle, agree to, it takes months and months for the Security Council to negotiate a joint statement or a joint resolution. So I don't think if we only focus on pillar 3 of R2P and the authorization of military force, I think that this is not what we should advocate for. And this is definitely not something that the Global Center advocates for, because also a military intervention is not always the best solution. There are many other solutions that are better, right? Like there's no military solution to the conflict, and there needs to be like a peaceful solution, and adding more like troops on the ground will only like further militarize the regions that is already highly militarized and insecure. So I would like push the international community to focus on other tools that they have at their disposal, which are numerous, and I'm happy to like discuss that further. Whether military intervention is the best one, I would not agree on that.
Yes, but if I look into, when you look at the patterns of the events that have happened in Cameroon within the past 5 years, it warrants such an action from the international community, because clearly Cameroon government have failed their responsibility. And even if you go into, let's take the pillar 2 of R2P, we still have countries today that are not doing their individual responsibility to hold Cameroon accountable. They fund Cameroon, they do collaboration with Cameroon with this complete disregard of what is happening in Cameroon. They go into trade deals with Cameroon without taking this into account. So all these things are just so difficult for the people of Southern Cameroon. The children, like the one who was killed yesterday, maybe she would have been alive today if something was done after yesterday. If something was done last time when we talked, she would have been alive today, but she's gone now because everyone is not doing anything. People who have the responsibility, who have the political muscles to push Cameroon or to make action, they still don't do it. And our people who want to believe, and they believe that the UN, the international community, is functioning and is the place that we should go for to seek for help. Now we just find ourselves like the people of Rwanda.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Yeah,
we understand the complexity. Yeah, we understand the complexity in those things. But even when you take the second pillar, right, pillar 2, what are the things that you think that some maybe individual states, African Union, they can take to, like, because if we think of like the pillar 3 is the last option, okay, let's leave it there. Let's talk about pillar 2. Why is nothing even still done from within that premises? Right. Economic sanctions, economic stuff could be done to restrain Cameroon government, because currently, as we speak, we think the war in Cameroon is being funded by foreign nations, by the international community. Cameroon government have no money. They get money from IMF, they get money from China, they get money from France, and all this money and all these weapons that are even given also, they are used and seen in pictures, videos in southern Cameroons. And we want to uphold and keep our trust in the international community. We want to keep our trust in international law. But when we see all these things, then people are being forced and pushed to the wall to believe that the only option is for them to fight back.
Yeah, no, I 100% like share your frustration, and it's something that you cannot explain to the people and the victims and the survivors of atrocities in any country situation, including in the southern Cameroons. And you saw, like, after yesterday's event, you saw member states on Twitter publicly like condemning again the situation, calling for an investigation. But you can only like condemn a situation once, right? Like you cannot condemn after condemn after condemn without doing anything. So if there's no follow up on the condemnation and actively like putting pressure on the government of Cameroon to find a peaceful solution, then this impunity begets impunity, and it's only getting worse from there. So I totally share like your frustration, and it's also for us, like based in New York and in Geneva, to constantly knock at people's doors of the Security Council, of the Human Rights Council, to make sure that the situation in Cameroon is being discussed. And I want to mention like quickly 2 things that have happened that are offering a little bit of like a small glimmer of hope, I would say, in the context of the Security Council, because while it is very difficult, right, to add Cameroon as a situation to the Security Council's agenda, as it is difficult to add other situations on the Security Council because they're just like unable to provide like an avenue towards peace and accountability in many situations. But there are currently some like indirect ways of discussing the situation in Cameroon, and most importantly is through the Children and Armed Conflict agenda, which is like a very important thematic area that the Security Council is focusing on for decades. And the Secretary General of the United Nations last year said that in the view of the gravity and the number of violations reported in Cameroon against children, like including the killing, maiming, and abduction of children, attacks on schools and hospitals, the denial of humanitarian access. He added the situation in Cameroon as a situation of concern with immediate effect, and included it in his reports on children armed conflict. So this means that last year, the UN was able to verify at least 285 violations against children occurring in the Northwest and Southwest and the far north regions of Cameroon. And it is important that the UN Security Council and the UN is now officially monitoring, reporting, and documenting violations against children. Because given the numerous attacks on schools, teachers, and students, this is a very important development. And it not only leads to reliable and verified data, it also gives members of the Security Council the opportunity to discuss the situation in Cameroon in the context of this children armed conflict theme. And with Cameroon being monitored in the context of crimes and violations against children, hopefully works as an important deterrent to perpetrators of these crimes, and hopefully leads to a decrease of attacks on schools, children, and teachers. And the other way for the Security Council to currently deal with the situation in Cameroon is through the annual briefing on the United Nations Regional Office for Central Africa. So this office was established on the 1st of January in 2011 and has the mandate, among other things, to carry out good offices and special assignments in countries in that region, including in the areas of conflict prevention and peace-building efforts. So there is a UN office regionally focusing on Cameroon, including Cameroon, among other countries. And this is also gives Security Council members every year the opportunity to raise the situation in Cameroon in debates. But yeah, like including Cameroon as a standalone item remains difficult for all the political deadlock and dynamics on the Security Council. And it is particularly the African countries on the Security Council that are like preaching the African solutions for African problems principle. And there have been like on the margins of Security Council meetings, like bilaterally, informally, there have been member states raising the situation in Cameroon to see if there is an opportunity to discuss it in the context of the Security Council. But it's again the African members who are trying to block that. And in particularly Kenya is hugely in favor of African solutions to African problems. And I think this is a very good principle, right? The African Union as a regional organization, as well as its sub-regional organizations, have the tools and the legal frameworks to respond to conflict and atrocity situation, and are way better placed due to its proximity to respond. But again, it's just a matter of political will to apply those tools. And if the African Union does not become more proactive in resolving the conflict in Cameroon, it risks seeing it escalate and possibly fueling instability in the region. And there are many tools that the African Union have, and they have also done like some things without an effect on the situation. But for example, like Article 4H of the Constitutive Act of the African Union establishes the right to member states of the African Union to intervene in the member states to prevent war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. But to date, Article 4H has never been invoked. And there is the African Union Peace and Security Council that is a decision-making organ of the AU for the prevention, management, and resolution of conflict. But Cameroon is not part of the agenda there either. Like the Peace and Security Council has the tools to anticipate and prevent disputes and conflict. They can undertake peacemaking or peace-building functions. They can authorize the deployment of peace support missions. They can recommend to the Assembly to invoke Article 4H. They can revoke a country's membership, which is a very important symbolic action they can do as well. Or they can call for a special rapporteur or an inquiry. But the Peace and Security Council also has not taken any action in the conflict of Cameroon. And it instead has classified the situation as an internal matter. So in 2018 and 2019, we saw the visit of Moussa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, to Cameroon. And he met with President Paul Biya to discuss the need for a national dialogue. And I think these visits are very symbolically important, right? It's an African Union high-level official visiting a president to discuss and bring up a conflict in the country. But I think these opportunities are important to exert the right amount of pressure. But unfortunately, it seems to have been a failed and a missed opportunity, because from the readout of that visit, it says that reaffirming the African Union's unwavering commitment to the unity and territorial integrity of Cameroon and rejection of the recourse of violence. He called for an inclusive dialogue, urged all stakeholders to privilege this path to facilitate a lasting way out of the crisis, based on national leadership and ownership that strengthened Cameroon's unity. So this is like a failed, it leads toward one solution. There needs to be a solution, but the only solution is to keep Cameroon united, which may not be the solution that the Southern Cameroonians want. So there are many options of tools that the Security Council, the African Union, but also the Human Rights Council, the General Assembly, individual member states, what you said in cutting military ties, cutting trade and development. But until so far, it has not led to any effective change on the ground, unfortunately. We only see a further escalation of the conflict.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, as a Pan-African myself, the African Union is a failure. And we all know that. The African Union we have today, if the founders of the African Union will come back today and see what is happening, they'll be shocked for themselves, because this is actually a rubber stamp building with people who don't do anything. Because when you talk about the issues in Cameroon, the problem in Cameroon is like the African Union is one of the places that these people know what went down in Cameroon. They knew there were historical past. So they shouldn't be confused. And if anybody is trying to, or using the pretext that, okay, this is an internal conflict, like, how is that internal? Because as far as we remember, if we just go back to 1961, where two states of equal status came together to form a federation, I have never heard, is it possible for a country to form a federation with part of the country? No, it must be two states that comes together to form a federation. So if you even can acknowledge that there were two Cameroons that came together to form whatever you are calling today, then you have to understand that is the root cause of this problem. So it is, I don't know why it should be seen or perceived as an internal conflict, because that is a license. That's the line the Cameroon government uses, the so-called internal conflict, as a license to kill. But the question is, how many thousand people need to die before something is done? And when all this will unfold and we get to the end, we are going to look up to the international community and people that we, hey, you had the opportunity to do something, you didn't do anything. It's the same thing Rwanda is facing today, because there were people who were able to help during the genocide in Rwanda, but they didn't act. They were talking politics. And now there is a very dark history with those countries and those institutions with the people of Rwanda, and we find ourselves in the same situation. But if we can, try to move on, we talk about this atrocity prevention. If we want to go away from the pillar 3, what are the things that, because we are just concerned with the loss of lives. That's the thing. We are tired of seeing people being slaughtered day in, day out, and there is no explanation of what is happening. Nobody wants to be accountable. So what are some of the things that the international community, can do to perhaps, because if you have to find a solution, and we talked about this last time, like lasting solution, we know of some of the things that have happened. We have the United States in the resolution. We have a couple of parliaments have been talking about this stuff. Even in France as well, that is even surprising. Is it because of the geopolitical situation now in, let's say, in Africa, because we have the crisis also in Ethiopia, we have the things in Mali, Central African Republic? Are these all factors that have, combined to release some pressure off the Cameroon regime with what was going on? Because we see a change in tone of the international community. From last time we spoke to now, it's a bit different.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's like increasingly frustrating that over 80 million people around the world are currently being displaced as a result of conflict and atrocities. So it's not only Cameroon, it's also the other situations that you just mentioned. And it's increasingly frustrated that the international community is unable to take effective action. And when I talk about like the Security Council, the General Assembly, the Human Rights Council, the African Union, those are not like separate entities, right? They are made up of member states. So every single state that is serving on one of these councils or assemblies have the individual responsibility to speak up. So they can take the leadership to discuss the situation in Cameroon. But they're just like it's politically sensitive. It's just like trying to see what situation they can bring up, what to seize the opportunities. But I think that like any state on the Human Rights Council, for example, can actively advocate to establish a commission of inquiry or a fact-finding mission on Cameroon. That any states can and have the responsibility to do that. But it has been very complicated to do that the past 3 years because Cameroon is a member of the Human Rights Council. And it's extremely frustrating if you looked at the elections yesterday of the Human Rights Council. Cameroon was re-elected with 170 member states voting for their re-election. And it's just outrageous how a member state that has a track record of human rights violations and atrocities can still be elected to become a member of the Human Rights Council. And this is one of the very easy things that the international community and member states can do to deny membership to a perpetrator of atrocity crimes. So those are like smaller things. It's again, like it's reviewing trade agreements, it's economic sanctions, it is cutting military ties, it's, fly to Yaoundé, talk to President Biya as a head of state to really tell him to find peaceful solutions. Like we are 5 years into like the real escalation of the conflict, and the government should realize that its strategy is not working. Like the more military operations it launched to eliminate separatist groups, the stronger separatist groups become. So the current strategy is counterproductive. The government must realize that there is no military solution to the conflict and it needs to find a peaceful solution. And this means that they have to launch inclusive, transparent, and credible negotiations about the future of the Anglophone regions and address the marginalization of the Anglophone population. And whether this will lead to the independence of the Anglophone region, that is in the hands of all Southern Cameroonians and their government. And every state that has the power, but also like smaller states, like Switzerland is trying to play an active role in mediating the conflict. It has not led to any tangible results, but every single member state can take effective action and exert the necessary pressure on President Paul Biya to find a peaceful solution. But it's just, again, unfortunately, the world that we live in today, it's almost like a competition of conflicts currently. And not that one is worse than others. Like but it's, like the government of Cameroon has such a strong and economically strong position within the African Union, within the continent. It's a proactive member and cooperation with big states like the United States on fighting terrorism in the region. So it's very difficult then to like give that up to put pressure on the government, unfortunately. And it's something that you cannot explain to the people in the southern Cameroons that are daily experiencing atrocities, and not only the ones that we saw yesterday, but it's a daily reality for people. So yeah, it's something that it's very hard to explain to the people.
So if anyone is watching now and listening to us, they will be thinking like, how is this going to end? And because when you look at some of the, let me say, efforts that have been made by the Paul Biya regime, and perhaps you talk about their strategy that the military approach is failing, it's not going to lead to anything, because if we go back and check, we can see that the Amazonian fighters were fighting with poor weapons before, but now they have explosive, and they even have, like patrol trucks, and they move around, they control pockets of territories in Amazonia. So as time is going, it's the nature of every conflict. The opponent is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So the question would be, even they talk about the so-called special status, they have their grand national dialogue. What else did they try to do? All those things, like even giving anybody a special status, like it doesn't even make sense. Like like again, we go back to 1961, two countries of equal status came together to form a federation. That is where we have to start. So what makes the other party think that they have the audacity, the right to appoint a special status to the other part of the other, sovereign state that joined them together? That doesn't make sense at all. Like, it's just stupidity. And when you look even deep into these arguments that some people are making with this thing, it's like, we are not separatists. We were internationally marked known borders, demarcated by international law, that were clearly protected when we were under the British colonial rule, when we walked out from the Nigerian Eastern Parliament, and the time that we had our own individual government from 1954 to 58. So even the term separatist is not, we are not separatists because we were never part of Cameroon. We are just trying to restore and to end what we see as recolonization of our own, national territory that was given to us by the United Nations, as countries like Pakistan and other countries that have the same status like that we have today. So all those efforts made by Cameroon government, all of them, they fall very short and very far. And we have some key players, the USA and France. To be honest, we cannot talk about the Cameroon crisis without talking about the role of France and America. America is back, as President Biden said. They are back to govern and lead. So now that America is back, what can we expect from America? Because we see a different regime in America that is pro-human rights, is pro-democracy, and is pro-R2P.
Yeah, and we are very happy that the US is back, like you said it. And I think there are already really good promising signs from the new State Department on prioritizing certain countries, including, they have mentioned prioritizing Cameroon, but also Ethiopia. Currently, in the context of Yemen, they are trying to step up their game and really raise awareness for the situation and trying to find a way to protect vulnerable populations in Yemen. So I hope that the United States will follow up on its resolution that it's adopted in January to really make all the things that they included in that resolution to translate that into reality, including discussing Cameroon in the context of the Security Council. It just needs effective pressure on the Paul Biya government. And just like those tweets on condemning situations is not enough anymore. Right. And when you mentioned the special status, the national dialogue, like when this was launched by President Paul Biya, it was just a way to satisfy the international community to pretend that it's actually working on finding a peaceful solution. But in reality, it's increasing its military offensives against separatist strongholds. So instead of commending the government for launching a national dialogue, it should actively follow up on the outcomes of the dialogue and make sure that the outcomes, including the special status, are actually being implemented and not just rhetoric and words that the government is using to satisfy the international community. And I think now with the escalation, and also mentioned by you, it's showing the international community that the situation is only further deteriorating and that armed separatists are not giving up. And that the government, I think most recently, a couple of weeks ago, the Prime Minister visited the southern Cameroon region. And he mentioned that, like, he called for peace, but he also allegedly said that those who refuse to lay down their weapons will be killed. So this is in no way, in my opinion, a peace offer. This is just a declaration of further war. And I think that those things should be monitored by the international community, should be condemned, and they should talk to President Biya and his government. Like, enough is enough. So I hope that the United States is going to take that role, and we will certainly try to mobilize them to play this role. But yeah, it's a hopeful new state government, new opportunities to address the situation in Cameroon.
Yeah, because America is one of the key players. If there's have to be any change, they have to be involved somehow. And we are hoping that the new regime is going to be, positive in looking into these issues. And I'm just reading now a tweet from the former Secretary of State for Africa, Tibor Nagy, and he wrote on Twitter, I think maybe you have seen this also: "We all know how Southern Cameroon crisis will end. Anglophone will gain their right, either in a genuine federation or breakaway state. Whether weeks, months, years, or decades, it will come. Human spirit is like a lion that cannot be broken." And this is the point. This is the thing. This is what we are talking about, because when you look at how this conflict have evolved within the years, you see that it is only getting stronger and better. And the strategies of Cameroon government, it is clear that the government is defeated, but we are just so now left on our own without any support or help from the international community. And again, he tweeted again, and the same person is talking about France here, because France is the key player in Cameroon. This is something that we all have to point out, that France has been a strong support of Francophone rights of Quebec in Canada. President de Gaulle even declaring Ville à Quebec libre. And how about equal support right for Anglophone crisis? Like, these are the things we are calling again. And the French president himself, he agreed on record that I know about the crisis in Cameroon, and France, the key player in the Security Council, they have never raised a finger on what is going on in Cameroon. But we are hoping that in future things are going to change. I don't know how much time you have left to continue on this discussion, but one very important thing you pointed in the beginning, the alliance with the Biafra that we have now. How is that perceived by the international community? Because this is something very huge, because right now we have this fantastic collaboration with the Biafra, and there is excessive flow of anything we want from both sides. And this is something that nobody wanted in the beginning. And this can overflow into Nigeria, and the whole, that region, the Sahel, the entire region can become very lawless.
Yeah, I hope that this will be like a game changer for the international community as well, that they suddenly like open their eyes, right? Because it's not only an internal matter anymore, it's becoming a spillover conflict in an already troubled region with the activity of Boko Haram and Al-Qaeda and ISIS related armed groups. So the more conflict there is and the more spillover there is, hopefully the international community will also start paying attention. And I think what is important in this context of the Biafrans in Nigeria and the Southern Cameroonians is that, like, it not only has to do with the separatist movement and the secessionist movement, but it also has to do with intercommunal violence that can hugely increase as a result of that. Because the alliance between the Biafrans and the Anglophones further ignites ethnic violence because they have a common enemy, right? It's the Fulani, who are predominantly Muslim, and tensions between the Fulani and the Biafrans and the Anglophone Cameroonians date back for decades. And we've already seen how the government is providing weapons and support to the Fulani to help them in their response to Anglophone separatist groups. And the other way around, we have seen Anglophone groups targeting Fulani for their involvement in the conflict. So this is only like further escalating and spreading throughout the region, and could be a potential game changer for the international community in terms of its response, because of the spillover and the regional instability it can lead to. And this is also for the African Union, not only for the Security Council and governments like the United States or France, but it's also for the African Union. I don't think the African Union is happy with adding another political conflict and instability to its continent and unable to respond to it. So I think that this is something to closely follow, and hopefully the international community will take it seriously and try to prevent the escalation until it's too late.
Yeah, I think that this could have been, resolved long time ago, but the inaction of the international community, and also I don't know what is happening in Cameroon, but the banality of evil that is in Cameroon that has occupied the minds of the politicians and the government officials. Our people talk about justice. They talk of justice. The Cameroon talk about peace. We spoke last time about, is there any possibility to have peace without justice? The answer is no. The baby who was killed yesterday, can her family have peace without justice? The answer is no. So these are the issues are just so much. We are talking about crimes against humanity, war crimes that are supposed to be investigated, prosecuted, and perhaps we have people face jail times for what they are doing in Cameroon. So even your own boss, Dr. Simon Adams, he said himself that Cameroon is on fire for many years, but nobody is doing anything. So what could be your final message for those who are in Cameroon responsible for this act, the government officials and whoever that you want to speak to, on behalf of the the thousands of people who are displaced, who are refugees, who have died. Like, what can you tell to them?
I hope that the perpetrators of atrocities in any country situation around the world do notice that there are more innovative ways currently being sought by the international community to provide justice for victims. Instead of waiting for the Security Council to refer a situation to the International Criminal Court, there have now been examples of the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly to establish accountability mechanisms. So my message would be that justice will eventually catch up with the perpetrators of atrocity crimes. And I think, like, for example, there is a huge potential for the Human Rights Council to establish a commission of inquiry or fact-finding mission that not only monitors and reports on human rights violations, but can also collect evidence of crimes and identify responsibility for those. There have been numerous examples currently on how on different country situations where such fact-finding missions of commissions of inquiry have been established. So Cameroon could be the next one. And also what I just mentioned with the children in armed conflict, like the UN is actively verifying, monitoring, and reporting on violations against children, hopefully including against the girl yesterday. That hopefully will send an important message to the perpetrators that eventually this will catch up and lead to effective accountability. Because if we have to wait for the Cameroonian government to provide those investigations, then we have to wait a long time. So I think those messages from the international community on ways to monitor and verify information currently on Cameroon, I think is very important for perpetrators, and eventually they will catch up. We have seen that in Rwanda. We have seen that in the former Yugoslavia and Srebrenica, how 30 years after the commission of crimes, people are being held accountable. So I think that this is the message. And I think also for the people working and living in the southern Cameroons, I think it's important especially for civil society organizations being present, to join forces, to connect with any organizations in the international community, like the Global Center for R2P that I'm working for, so we can amplify those voices and ensure that those voices are heard. Because New York is a faraway bubble from Cameroon, and where actively people are experiencing atrocities on a daily basis, and only by amplifying their voices and making sure that the international community hears what is going on, we can hopefully eventually find a peaceful solution to the conflict.
Thank you very much, and I sincerely appreciate your time. It has been, I think we have been talking for almost about over an hour, so I know you have a very busy schedule. Thank you very much for coming, Juliette. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Let me see if I have to move on to something else right now. All right, Ambazonians. Yes. I think now we are going to have our second guest on the show. Comrade Edwin Gang need to join us. Let's see. Let's see. We get our second guest to join us on the show now. And our studio guys, if you can. If you can put us some music, maybe we can use some few minutes to get our second guest. Edwin Gang is coming. Ambazonians. I think while we wait for our second guest to join me, I just want to touch on and iron on the point that we were discussing here. Somebody might be watching this live show and they will be saying, like, why do you have to interview the same person again? Ambazonians, we need to keep the international community talking. We need to be talking, and that is what we are doing. And we need to continue to talk and explain these things to people. And that is what you talk about, media diplomacy. That's what you do, and that is the thing. We bring key persons from key organizations to talk about this struggle. We educate them about something, and we're not going to say, okay, if you interview somebody one time, you never talk to them again. No, we keep talking, because from February we spoke last time, a lot have changed from, if you look about what is happening today. So and again, if you look at these discussions, at the end we see that we are on our own, Amazonians, and that is good, because we are capable of fighting Cameroon to the finish line, and we are not going to give up. And that is the mindset Ambazonia needs to know. The international community will only come after we have done the work, after the job is done. That is the only time they are going to come on. They will not come to save you. We must fight. That is why we continue to applaud and appreciate our soldiers like General Arike and others who are fighting on the ground. And that is the way forward. And there's no other solution for us. There's no other solution. Nobody is coming to save Ambazonia. We must fight ourselves. We must fight this struggle, block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, and push Cameroon out of Ambazonia. That is the only way. There is no other way. That is the only solution. Yes. Now we have our second guest is there. If the studio people can put him on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Do you hear me too?
Yes, I hear you 5 on 5, sir. Welcome on board once again on the Diplomatic Valleys program. It has been a while since last time we spoke. And today, I don't know if you were following the live show. I had the guest from the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect in New York. And we talk about some key things. We always know, Ambazonia, that those organizations and those institutions, those organs, of course, they have their role to play, but they are not the key players in our struggle. We are the key players. So after, like now, when she left, then I think, okay, it's good to talk with a senior comrade like you. So I must say, on your own perspective, where do you see the struggle now, the current situation?
Thank you, Comrade Ufoka, for always having this show, which is an opportunity to get our brothers and sisters, especially those in Ground Zero, be informed about what's going on. More importantly, what should be done so as to correct our current missteps. Our lady, the lady of Juliet, Miss Juliet Power, has done a tremendous job in your show to give us the realities of a war. And if there's any lesson to take out, it's just that they are not going to come into a funeral and cry and do everything for us. The best they can do is make those suggestions, which, as you notice, always end in that rubric where they have defaulted to the jurisdiction of Cameroon. The problem has always been how we define our problem. That is essentially the problem right now, 2021. Yeah. It started as far back as you can trace our history. My question to our listening audience is, do we have evidence that the major actors of our current struggle, those who go about creating groups at each decade, each successive year, did they take time to understand this problem? Do we understand what our problem is? Or is it just a matter of joining in and playing what now has been defined as the politics? Let me define the problem. It's a problem of sovereignty. Yes. Ms. Juliet said something very important, that African countries could invoke Article 4H. The right.
That is what I was going to come. That was, if you watch when I was watching, my eyes were open, because she was saying something very important that Ambazonia need to listen. I need to go back and listen to that clip again. She said something that was, I was thinking that you are going to come to explain this thing to me and to the audience.
But important to note that Article 4H, which is the right to intervene, is predicated on Article 4B, which is the principle of territoriality, the respect of each country's territorial integrity. Okay, now we have been conducting our business of this, our struggle, and now call it the restoration quest, in this confused state where we have deferred our territorial integrity. We have subsumed it underneath that of Cameroon. And why? The reason is because of, quote unquote, we have these actors who have joined our struggle at each successive generation, rejecting the constitutional origins of our cause. This has been fully and completely exhausted by the Republic of Ambazonia. This is not longer a debatable matter, that the justification of our rights of self-determination, our rights to our nationality, now defined distinctively from that Cameroonianness factor as Ambazonia, has been done in the name Republic of Ambazonia. It was done constitutionally. It has been defended legally in both domestic and international jurisdictions. Now, if anybody would think that what I'm saying is not right, then take off some time and go do your research. Miss Juliet knows about it, but it is not her job to come and advocate for our right to now being perceived as breaking away from Cameroon. No, we are not.
Yes,
The territorial
exactly.
integrity of Republic of Cameroon as time of their independence is sacrosanct, just as the territorial integrity of the successor state of the Republic of Southern Cameroon, which is the Republic of Ambazonia, is sacrosanct. If we were to conduct this business of our restoration quest by simply obeying these rules, we will no longer have these groups, the latest one being the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, which came in and destroyed the universe where we were trending towards unifying our struggle through the Skakufi, the price for subscribing towards the sovereignty doctrine. By sovereignty doctrine, I mean, we ought to be telling the world that we are not Cameroonians, not by complaining about the latest killing that happened yesterday, which is called the litany of sorrows, and marginalization, democratization. Those things happen in every other country in the world. We know that. We need to be telling the world that Cameroon's continual subjugation of our country, it has now precipitated this genocidal war, which is now causing these crimes against humanity that should provoke responsibility to protect. It came in 2005 as the ultimate case against humanitarian interventionism after Rwandan issue happened. But can we do it? Yes, we can do it as long as we stop fighting each other in our various groups. Those of you listening, you came into this struggle at different times. I'm just appealing to you. Did you take some time to investigate the problem? As I identified, the problem is sovereignty. It's not government. It's not democracy. It's not minority rights. It's the sovereignty that has been alienated, denied us. We, the 8 million Ambazonians, the successor state of a once sovereign country called Republic of Southern Cameroon, not government of Southern Cameroon. We ought to be the one telling the world that we got independence when trusteeship was terminated on October 1, 1960. That is the date we should be celebrating as our independence date, not that date where we were annexed called October 1, 1961. We were annexed by the Republic of Cameroon. Let's face the fact. Foncha and Endele, we signed a contract to form a confederation, which is just like what is happening in the European Union. You do not go to Belgium or to Norway or to Liechtenstein and tell them what to do about their country. Nobody does that. The European Union has its parliament, which independently checks things that were subscribed as confederal on confederal jurisdiction. We had the same structure. The Plebiscite Pact was a confederation treaty signed between our head of state called Jongu Foncha. Don't mind it called Prime Minister. He's the head of state of the Republic of Southern Cameroon. We should start calling it Republic of Southern Cameroon, not government of Southern Cameroon. We have investigated and found out why the British people in the Fourth Committee in 1960 decided that they wanted to call it government because they didn't want to confer to us the fact that we were a sovereign state. And we being that naive, not having any politician who represented our sovereign interest, aka our best interest, got along with that. It was supposed to be called Federal United Cameroon Republics with an S. Federal Cameroon United Republics with an S. That was the name as proclaimed by Resolution 1608. It is there clearly stated in the resolution 2022 of a trusteeship article in 1960. And also, it is also part of the plebiscite pact. But why did we end up with just simplistic name Federal Republic of Cameroon? Because they had already known that we were going to be annexed. President Ahidjo, the Republic of Cameroon, on May 1960, was ordered by Charles de Gaulle to proclaim a decree calling the country Federal Republic of Cameroon. Remember the date. It was May 1961. The plebiscite has just finished in April 19. The resolution 1608 finished in April 21st. What has
April 21st?
Yes, we had not negotiated the treaty. They had the United Nations and Britain had not convened that plebiscite conference, which was how we were going to form that union. Then he came and proclaimed a Federal Republic of Cameroon in May 10th, 1961, and we accepted it. Look, there are so many illegalities that makes Cameroon jurisdiction over us null and void. But the question is, are we going to accept our sovereign state, which is now currently subjugated, the one that we can defend, not by politicking, inventing falsehoods and saying that we joined Cameroon? We did not join Cameroon. The act of joining Cameroon was a constitutional act which was never implemented because they never convened that plebiscite conference. The United Nations did not convene it. The British did not convene it. What happened in Fuman was simply an illegal act which was manipulated by Foncha and our sovereignty. I will call it sovereignty clueless politicians, because if they knew that they were a sovereign state, they should not have gone to Fumban without United Nations being present there to discuss the matters that were exclusively given as for the federal government, which were only 8. There were only 8 matters, none of which prejudiced the integrity of each sovereign state. Remember, we could have had West Cameroon is a sovereign state, East Cameroon is a sovereign state. It's similar to what is happening in the European Union. But now that that has gone under the water, we should be thinking about restoring the sovereignty of our country. How do we do that? Moving forward, we acknowledge our rights to our sovereignty, now constitutionally originated and legally defended as Republic of Ambazonia 1. Then we call upon the international community to invoke that principle of territoriality which governs interstate relationship in Article 4B in African Union and in the United Nations Article 1. Then we ask for either the recognition of Republic of Ambazonia as a sovereign state, being now under subjugation by Cameroon to the cost of a genocidal war which is ongoing, or we are very fair people, we are very confident people, or we will ask for the same thing that United Kingdom did when they left the European Union, an exclusive and exit referendum. Preceding that must be an international peacekeeping contingent placed in Ambazonia. We are not saying we're going to disarm the Amba fighters. They will not, but there will be an international peacekeeping contingent. Why am I saying that? Because this has already been referenced by the United Kingdom House of Lords in November 14, 2018. This is already a pathway to the permanent solution. So, my fellow Ambazonians, you are out there doing your best, but I will have to make a confession. We have never had a polity where we have held our politicians responsible for their actions. Neither do we even have a way of checking whether they are really qualified to be our representatives. Do you recall what happened in 1959 at the Manfred Conference? Please. We had ordinary chiefs who never went to school. Majority of the chiefs voted that secession from Nigeria, it was the wrong word, will lead to independence. They did it at the Manfred Conference in August 12, 1959. Okay, they were debating about the plebiscite. Would that not have been sufficient evidence that there should not have been any plebiscite? Foncha had just won election a few months earlier, and he and Ndele left that conference and went to the United Nations, and they were instead fighting among themselves as to who will become prime minister. Whereas they should have just conveyed the people's vote at the Manfred Conference that no more should we have any plebiscite. And that would have been the end of the thing. So Do we have a solution? Yes, we have a solution predicated on the rule of law, on the fact that the constitutional framework which this country exists is completely illegal, and it has been proven in the courts of law by your own sovereign state now called Republic of Ambazonia. If Ambazonians were to rally around that premise, we will have countries recognizing us, and we will have the
that's a very, very good and a solid point. The sovereignty argument should be, because if you try to argue this thing outside sovereignty, everything else becomes political. One Cameroon, internal matter, internal conflict. And this is something that it only took me some, like last year, to really come to the realization that if you try to argue this thing, anything outside of sovereignty, you end up with this internal conflict defense from Cameroon and others. But Mrs. Juliette pointed out the African Union, specifically Kenya, with the African solution. What I was thinking, what was going on through my mind was that, have we failed diplomacy in Africa? Because it seems to me like that is the place we should have been first rushing to find solutions. But we are outside. But Africa is the place where the work needs to be done to push anything to move.
Very correct, comrade. And I noticed you also mentioned something when you were having that discussion with Ms. Juliette, that I don't think you were blaming United States, but you mentioned that United States and France were very, very important partners.
Players,
I would consider a solution. But United States' relationship with our struggle did not start in 2017. Again, Ambazonians woke up one morning in 2017 and thought this matter started then. Let me explain something. The United States understands what is going on in our country because it has had contact with us since the beginning, since 1946, when they created at San Francisco the Trusteeship Council. They understood what was going on during the termination process. As a matter of fact, the Consul General in Lagos in 1959 warned us that the way things were going because of the politics between Foncha, Endele, and all those nonsense that were not connected with the mandate. Our mandate is United Nations Article 76B. Every Ambazonian should go back and read that Article 76B. It clearly says, in paraphrase, we were to be led from the state of self-government to independence. Simple. It is a mandate. It is the highest law that governs our struggle. It does not need to be politicized. We either have self-government or we have independence, period. The question I need to ask Ambazonians, do we have any of those? No. The question you ought to honestly ask, why? Don't go and be blaming anybody. Let's blame ourselves. When we got self-government in 1958, okay, British had already completed that mandate. Effectively, if we understood that we have accomplished that mission, we should be telling United that we were ready for being a full-blown independent state. But let me just give the fact that they went ahead and said that we're going to grant us independence in 1960. Yes, the records are there. They said we were in no way different than Nigeria. That is a note sent to the Fourth Committee by C.E. Cohen, the United Kingdom representative at the United Nations in 1958, that the Southern Cameroon and Nigeria were progressing concurrently towards independence. That is the reason why we were granted the same constitutional order in council before trusteeship was terminated. Nigeria's independence was in October 1, 1960. Our independence was in October 1, 1960. Both of us had the same constitution. Okay, the question now you need to ask, if we have been given all this evidence that we're a sovereign country, why then are we where we are now? Asking President Biya and Cameroon to be doing something called inclusive dialogue, which is like asking the fox to come back and mend that fence and hang around with the chicken farm to figure out whether they're going to eat some of it. It is not just illogical, but it's stupid. We have
it is.
Yes, we ought to be responding to what the United States told.
And even some people are talking about the so-called special status. Like, how is that even justified?
Special status is a degradation of our current status. We are a sovereign people under La Republique subjugation. We do not need Cameroon to be dictating us. They are not our colonial master. The mandate that was prescribed for us expired on October 1, 1960. The question we need to be asking is, what have we done? We have successfully restored our sovereignty when this union, this fake union, was dissolved by restoration law of February 4th, 1984. President Biya came, he thought that they had sufficiently assimilated us. He passed the law. Lo and behold, we took advantage of the law and recovered that sovereignty. That is the message we need to be letting the world know. We recovered our sovereignty now, no longer as the Republic of Southern Cameroon, but as the Republic of Ambazonia, because we don't want anything to do with the word Cameroon. You remember the Thibault Nagy warning that there's too much Cameroonianness, and it is true. We should accept the fact we are promoting Cameroon interests every time we use the word Southern Cameroons. In my own opinion, that word needs to be banned. We should not, if we are interested in our independence, we should be supporting the September 22nd, 2017 Ambazonian Rising to Fall No More movement that erupted from ground zero, which is an act of self-determination and an act of Ambazonian people invoking their rights to the Ambazonian nationalism. What has happened since 2017? The same politicians who took advantage of our people are now calling us Southern Cameroonian / Ambazonia in mid-speech. That is a degradation of our status. There is nothing valuable in associating and promoting pan-Cameronism. But to let one point out before I go, before I finish this my thought, United States had given us a prescription after the ICJ matter was completed in 2002. They knew now that we've exhausted legal remedies, meaning that we have justified the sovereignty of a people with a predefined territorial boundary now as Republic of Ambazonia. Republic of Ambazonia intervened at the Bakassi proceeding in ICJ from 1995 to 2002. Okay, the Green Tree Accord came and affirmed that by invoking an element which now addressed the issue of territoriality. ICJ and United Nations told to convene a boundary commission that went and demarcated the boundaries between Nigeria, Federal Government of Nigeria, Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the Republic of Cameroon, using the principle of territoriality and the maps these countries posed at the United Nations at their time of independence. Guess what happened? The map of the Republic of Cameroon is exactly what it is, the one they had in 1960. The map of Federal Republic of Nigeria is exactly what they have in 1960. When they demarcated that boundary, they were also demarcating the Republic of Ambazonia. Dr. Ali Abdulsalam Treki visited Cameroon on the 50th anniversary in 2010 and provided what now is called a gift of two maps. It is a video documentary clearly showing that these people know now that Cameroon cannot be going out and claiming its territorial integrity and non-intervention in its matter to include Ambazonia. The only reason that has existed is because of our failure.
It's because of our failure to use the sovereignty claim.
Exactly. It's because we have politicians coming at this successful stage refusing to promote the sovereignty message because they want to promote their own agenda. The latest one is the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, which destroyed or is attempting to destroy the constitutional fabric of our case. Our case is simply based on constitutionalities and its legalities. We do not want to be associated with any politics because you cannot outpolitic France. You can never. They have the resources to outpolitic us forever. So my question now is that, do we want to correct this problem? Yes. If we want to do it, we do it right now. And before we can actually have a countdown clock towards independence, but it has to be based on the processes that will highlight the principle of territoriality so that African Union can be held to Article 4B and 4H. And we also can start promoting an exclusive referendum, just as an exit is equivalent to Brexit, and calling on United Kingdom, who are aware of this problem but have taken a posture that favors France because of their NATO intrigues, to come back and tell us why can they and France not form the same bilingual country if they're insisting on us. It's a very simple premise. If you think that we have to be with Cameroon, then United Kingdom and France should start forming their own federation right now. They can't because it is not a systemic process. You cannot ask us to be experimenting on a bilingual society which has failed.
Very good point, comrade. Like, we need to talk about these things and we need to look at where we go. So we don't have so much time to talk because I don't want this show to become so long. But now I want to touch on something very critical here. the AGC alliance with the Biafra. Where do you see that heading, and what impact have that brought to the struggle? Because I remember when I talk about this alliance, I am here today, I still don't support such alliance. And even if I want to support something like that, I will say that the way it has been done is not the right way you do such alliances, you know? So let's talk about that, the AGC and the Biafra alliance.
Well, you know, our struggles devolved into groupism, I call it, and the groupism situation has created confused approaches, aka strategies. And if anyone thought that that was a strategic move, I would not. I'm still trying to figure out what is strategic about intervening in the internal affairs of Nigeria. Period. We ought to stay away from intervening in the internal affairs of the only country that we should expect their support. And I know that they are a country that understands our problem very well. So I think it was a wrong move, simply because Nigeria, territorial integrity, we must respect it. That is the cardinal rule for interstate relationship. We are Republic of Ambazonia and will respect Article 4B, just as we insist that our principle, the principle should be maintained to us. We will also insist it. So I hope that there will be some correction during the course, but the greater picture, the greater goal should be for us to be working towards correcting mistakes that have been made in the past. If you can trace it as far back as 1948. So we made a mistake yesterday. Most people were rushing to, we have several circumstances where we have opportunity to get our political actors, the so-called leaders, to reflect on their current track and see whether are they engaging in consistent with best practices, or are we just in this competition race? And yesterday, when they killed that young child, oh my goodness, it is just another situation again to cause your anger to bubble. But then the question that needs to be arresting everybody is, now what? Have we not had many of these circumstances in the past? There will be another one coming probably before the end of this year. We understood there was one before that. That was Baby Mata. There are many situations that just keep happening and happening and happening. The question now is, the permanent solution ought to be our objective. We ought to define it and present it to the Ambazonian people in writing. The only organization that has done it and is clear to do it and is the Republic of Ambazonia. We have always presented our facts clear because we have nothing to hide. We don't do politicking. We are not involved in ground zero, not because we do not know what is happening. It's because we know there's a better option which can happen and make everything that is done in ground zero happen within a predictable outcome. By 2013, we were having relationships off the record in African countries. I remember you saying in the area that we ought to focus in African countries. Yes, we've done a lot of work in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Sierra Leone. Those are the three countries that we've gone there. And they have all understood our problem, but they've always asked us to do one thing, which we have been struggling to meet: get united. Now, somebody would think that unity means that you should come and blend. It happens, blending unity in a case of sovereignty is like asking contaminating your steel by bringing in copper. But in parliamentary politics, meaning after we had independence, you can have what is called parliamentary unity, where you can blend things. But I don't understand how you can blend our sovereignty. We only have one sovereignty, and that sovereignty is a discrete variable. So if you don't want the sovereignty, you either want it or you don't want it. Most people say, okay, let's unite. And I say, yeah, the facts are there. Just come and add value to it so that we move forward. We are a big people. There are many opportunities for you to excel in your skilled area. There will come a time when people will be running for positions in their counties when we have the effective operation of a functional independent state. All we should be consolidating our forces towards getting that state. But people will refuse. They'll refuse the concept of the sovereignty, which has already been articulated by the Republic of Ambazonia and exhausted, as I said, in both domestic jurisdiction, HCP 2892, and in international jurisdiction like ICJ and International Court for Civil and People's Rights. We've done all those things. They will debate that sovereignty and then ask you to come and collaborate. Then they are saying I should compromise the sovereignty that we already have. That is impossible. It is you who came in time 2017, who was supposed to have done your homework but failed to do it, should take off time and go and investigate. If you don't know how to do it, hire a consultant. Go to the University of Boston. You'll find a professor at the Faculty of Political Science. Hire them. They'll explain to you what our problem is. If you don't know our problem, please avail yourself to the facts. Don't bring in politics, gang around the facts, build in what now we call this groupism, which is the surrogacy network that is confusing everybody, and fan fake news in the media that is streaming alternative news of our story. Our story should have been that Cameroon is subjugating the sovereign state that we came to form a confederation, which has recovered that sovereignty, but is now under subjugation at the cost of this genocidal war. That should be the main story, and we define that story clearly on political and get the foreign governments to recognize that sovereignty because we have the facts. Not calling for support of my government and another government, because government can be alienated. Cameroon can create a government in Ambazonia today and build in people there. It will be nothing.
Yeah, that's very true, comrade. I think that if, we are going to arrange, you and I will have another time to sit down and really talk about the struggle, but you came now to just put the point of sovereignty, because everything we discussed with this lady today, we should let today, it was pointing back to this argument you're making, because this internal matters, internal affairs, because the sovereignty argument is missing. And that is a puzzle that if you put that puzzle in the equation, then all of a sudden, everybody's going to see the legality of what we are talking about, the constitutionality of what we are talking about. And then it will be easy for any person, any state to intervene or to say something, because right now it is kind of a confused atmosphere. But really
Well, I will just plead with my Ambazonia doing the best to fight we were never a federal republic. We're supposed to be a federal united republics. So if you understand the foundation was false, it means everything that is Cameroon is false and illegal and unconstitutional. That is a very good position to begin investigating the problem. Then you should also know that when you have a problem, you have with what is called range of solutions. There's a single problem, but there could be ranges of solutions, which means that alternative strategies. But my plea is that do not fall victim to melanging solutions. There's no such thing as blend.
come back. I think we're having some technical problems. I think we're having some technical issues now. So, but the camera is on. My camera is on now back. It should be live now. because now I can see myself in both. Yes, yes, Amazonians, I think that we have a technical problem here today. These things are just going off abruptly like that. And definitely, yes, I see that I am back on Facebook now. I am back again. But I think that I will just round up the live show for today. And my apologies to the senior comrade Adrian Gang that we have a network problem. So, but Amazonians, we can all see, we know that we need to restructure this struggle. We need to rechannel our energy, our effort, our strategies towards the right direction, because we are the only ones to free ourselves. It is our duty. There's nobody who is going to come from anywhere to free Amazonia. We must fight block by block, pick ourselves up and push Cameroon out of Amazonia. And that means we have to support the struggle financially. We have to support the struggle by all means, Amazonians. And the argument about sovereignty is very important, because when you take out the argument of sovereignty, then this struggle becomes an argument of internal affairs. And this is very important, that we have to restructure the cause, the narrative of this struggle. What are we fighting for? What is the problem? We have to define the problem very clearly. If you do that definition very clearly to any person, then it's easy for them and even state and countries to take actions against Cameroon and to do some things that will push our struggle forward. There's a lot of things already going on in the diplomatic community, but today I just wanted to talk with these two guests. But next time we are coming to update you guys with diplomatic updates. What are the diplomatic things that have happened within this year, and where are we going to? But Amazonians, you have to stay strong to the struggle, stay faithful to the struggle, and we will continue to fight and push till we get to Buea. We are never and ever going to stop any way half. We are going to fight till we get to our promised land. And that is the only way. We are not going to give up for anyone. We are going to fight to the end. So I stand in solidarity with you and strongly in support with you, with your effort, with your tenacity. I am so happy and proud of your strength, your resilience, how powerful you are to fight and fight and fight till we get to Buea. We are all together Amazonians. We are going to fight block by block. We are going to fight neighborhood by neighborhood, Gotaho by Gotaho, till we get our independence, till we get our sovereignty restored back as an independent nation that we were before. But this is not a walk in the park. This is a very tough battle. We must fight together, and we are going to fight together till we get to Buea. So I wish you a very good weekend, and long live Amazonia and short live the struggle. We'll see you again next time on live. Bye-bye.